All right, YouTube, try not to mind the cacophony of birds outside because it's about 70 degrees and it's not even noon yet. Dilma Rousseff has been impeached. That is in the nation of Brazil. She was implicated in the Petrobras scandal. She probably embezzled millions. She tried to shield the ex-president who embezzled millions. People got tired of it. Her approval rating was approaching Pol Pot levels, let's face it. So she got kicked out by the Senate. She's been impeached and suspended from office. The vice president is now the acting authority within the country. If you look, you'll see what seems to be many millions of people celebrating. I think people got tired of it around the time that Rousseff tried to use the court system there to block even the possibility of being removed from office. Which just smacks of scandal and corruption even more than the original scandal. If she had just said, oh, well, sorry, I fucking made a mistake, she could have played dumb and said, oh, I didn't realize that this dude was actually implicated. I thought he was telling me the truth. She probably could have weathered the storm and just played dumb. It's even funnier because this is the first female president of Brazil, and she's already been removed from office with, again, sub 20%, possibly sub 15% approval, making George W. Bush at his lowest point look like a saint by comparison, I suppose. Which is more reason we need to look at our own campaign here in the United States and say just because an executive happens to be female obviously doesn't mean that she does a better job or is more honest or is looking out for the average person any more than a male would. There are a lot of people who are settling for Hillary on the token that, well, she has boobs and a vagina, therefore she must be superior in some strange, quasi-mystical way, which obviously isn't the case. But yes, similar lies and similar corruption dogs her as well in Brazil. First, Dilma apparently just disclaimed everything. Oh, there's no, I have nothing to do with this oil scandal that's going on. They've got nationalized oil, which is the worst possible way that you can run an oil company. They're going to end up like Venezuela if they don't change their centrally planned oil extraction system, which would suck. Brazil has a much larger population than Venezuela and a much larger influence over the world economy. It's one of the largest countries on earth, has a huge population, an enormous proportion of arable land, minerals, and all sorts of other resources. It's a potentially gigantic economy. It could be on par with like the United States almost, if it had Pacific frontage anyway. But they don't do too badly, I guess, in some parts of Brazil that have been fully developed. So first she disclaimed any knowledge. Then she tried to get the ex-president on board to shield him from prosecution. And it was apparently at this point that people said, what the hell's going on, and started taking to the streets. This may also have a little bit to do with the disaster unfolding that is the Rio Olympics. You have, I think, a former swimmer or soccer star, some major athlete saying don't even bother attending. You've got Zika virus overshadowing the entire affair. Now, I'm not fear-mongering about Zika because I understand, medically speaking, it's not nearly as dangerous as a lot of people are claiming. You've got a handful of birth defects from many millions of infections. I'm not seeing it to be, it's not Eastern equine encephalitis. It's not malaria or something like that. It's Zika virus. It's, closer, I guess, to that one that causes, I can't remember what the fuck it's called, Chagas, I think. I may be wrong. The one that makes your joints feel like they're being twisted around backwards. We're really painful, but ultimately most people recover just fine. You get a handful of Gollum babies, I would recommend just fucking abortion or euthanasia or something, I guess. And that may seem a little bit unhumanitarian of me. I don't give a fuck. But as far as Dilma Rousseff goes, after this she tried to appeal to the courts to block the possibility of impeachment. And at the last hour, they said no. They threw their hands up and said, we're not protecting you from this fucking one. And then the Speaker of the lower house tried to annul the proceedings of the House there that got sent to the Senate. Apparently what happened is his annulment came too late. It had already been sent to the Senate. He doesn't have reign over it anymore. And of course, he was a Dilma ally. The other speaker got kicked out in favor of a Dilma ally. That looked like corruption too, and now she's been forced out. So now what's she doing? Oh, she's calling it a coup. Stand up in rank, she says to her socialist fans. Burn some tires and wave the red blood banner and protest this coup. It's not a coup. Your approval levels were sub Bush, sub Saddam Hussein, probably sub real approval of Kim Jong Un at that point. I mean, it's retarded. For this crazy butt-headed socialist who looks like her head is a can of Spam to stand there and talk about a coup is hilarious. That would be like any other random tin horn idiot who embezzles their own people's money, getting caught out doing it, getting forced out and calling it a coup. It wouldn't matter if it was a right-winger, a left-winger, a radical libertarian, a fascist, a theocrat. Doesn't fucking matter when you do that to your people. You're in a democratic republic. You run that risk. I would note people in traditionally leftist parties like the Green Party and even members of her own party are voting to get her out of office. While this is being done for a reason, it's not part of some vast right-wing conspiracy, which is, I'm sure, what would be blamed if Hillary Clinton got caught with her hand in the cookie jar one too many times should she be elected. She'd probably call on the same thing. Oh, it's a coup by my enemies. They can't stand the fact that I'm female or have a D after my name. And in reality, she's just a global corporatist anyway. The fact that the oil system's nationalized makes it easier for her to use it as her private piggy bank, makes it easier for her allies to use it as a private piggy bank. And they should all be dragged off to a jail cell for doing that. In every other aspect, I guess they have to do some dealing with corporations that aren't necessarily directly under their power. It's easier to steal when it's centrally planned. If it's centrally planned and government co-opted and it's a state monopoly, basically, you can make the family-friendly sounding excuse that socialists always do of, oh, well, we're redistributing 99% of the profit of this state oil company back to the people at large on a sliding scale or in a redistributionist manner or something. And it never actually happens. And it never works because then first, the people say, well, we want more handouts because there's more profits. And so you never have money to invest in making that technology better because there's no competition. There's no reason for you to make it better. You're just using it as a piggy bank. You take 1% off the top and distribute the rest back to the people that aren't working on the oil rigs themselves. And everyone feels just fine. They have a loaf of bread in their stomach at night, I suppose, and maybe some chickpeas or whatever. Some tacos or whatnot. And then number two, when you fail to advance, that pool grows smaller and smaller. People call for more and more. And in those bad times that inevitably rear their ugly head in any economy, then you're forced to dip into the stash even more, well beyond the nationalized systems that you're already drawing from, and then you start to fuck your currency, you start to fuck with trade. It doesn't work. It's been tried time and time again. Central planning is a disaster. Interventionism is barely less of a disaster, and we're seeing that worldwide at this point. We have no real free market economies left in the face of the earth that don't have some interventionism screwing with the economy. I would point out, by the way, this is a similar thing at work in the student loan crisis here in the United States. There never would have been a crisis if these universities and colleges had competed within a free market system. Costs would have been held down as they competed for the most intelligent students, many of whom are not also the wealthiest people in the country. Never would have become a problem. It wasn't a problem before until the federal government got involved dispersing a bunch of free money to these universities and colleges. Suddenly those universities and colleges realized, oh, there's no more profit motive. We don't have to compete price-wise. We can just jack up our prices as high as we want. We'll all do it together. We'll all make bank. We'll pay the president of our college, the dean, like a $10 million salary, and we'll build this stadium and that fucking skating rink and this new building we don't even need, and we'll lay marble tiles and have gold-encrusted tubs in every staff office. Meanwhile, they treat the students and the faculty like absolute shit. You shouldn't even consider how badly the janitors are treated. Let me just say one thing about that before I go back to Dilma for a moment. The janitors at fucking UVM had to go on strike for higher pay. These are literally like migrant worker janitors who are getting like $10 an hour to do all of the dirty work. Meanwhile, the dean's getting what, like $2-3 million a year. Sports coaches sometimes get like 8-figure salaries. It's retarded. As far as Dilma goes, she's out of office. It's not a coup. Every leftist in the world may want to call it a coup, but if the shoes were on the other foot, if this were some right-wing leader who got caught embezzling and got forced out, would it be a coup then, all things else being equal? Clearly, they wouldn't say so because they're just pandering. They can't stand the thought of Brazil, which has been under the rule of the left and suffered for it for some time. They can't comprehend how terrible for them it would be because there's a burgeoning libertarian movement in the nation of Brazil. What happens if it becomes the first de facto libertarian state on the face of the earth? Their economy will soar. All of a sudden, people there will be more wealthy, it will be stable and peaceful, and it'll be prosperous, and people will be coming from everywhere begging to get into the nation of Brazil. Oh, it'd be terrible for the left because it will show how weak they are. It'd be terrible for the right wing, too. The neocon retards of the world, because they'll outshine them completely. All of a sudden, it's not the U.S. or Europe that's like the great immigrant attractor. It's some libertarian state in South America that's got an actual free market economy where people can go and actually make a living and not have to. They don't have to stuff their mattress with money because of out of control inflation like they're increasingly going to have to do here. It's a fucking retarded world. Most of the world leaders are retarded. Doesn't matter where they fall on the political spectrum. Dilma just got caught. It's like Nixon. Nixon didn't do anything particularly bad that other presidents hadn't done, folks. He just got caught doing it because he was stupid. That's why he got impeached and had to resign. Dilma's been impeached. She's suspended, I think, for 180 days, if I remember correctly, which means she's done. She doesn't have a political career in the future. I think she was foreign born, too, actually. I think she was born abroad and then, shortly thereafter, I guess her parents moved to Brazil or some shit. But, some crazy commie. She hasn't done anything good for her country. You look at the increasing inflation, the lower productivity, getting fucked by BRICS backwards because China and Russia just see you as a giant cornfield, basically. It's not a good situation. Brazil should leave the BRICS. It should ban these commies and socialist guerrillas from holding power, and it should institute national libertarianism. And if it does so, it'll be the most prosperous country on the face of the earth real fucking quick. It'll be a bastion of development in a part of the world that, let's face it, it's not like completely it's not like sub-Saharan Africa levels of poverty, but it's generally seen as being more impoverished than most parts of the world. It's not it's not France. It's not it's not New York or something like that. It's Brazil. Well, it doesn't have to be. It's already rapidly developing. It can develop 10 times faster if you just kick out all of the socialists. It'll be great. You don't need a far-right group in there either, because the far-right barely does better fiscally than the left does these days anyway. It's nonsensical to even bother voting between two of shitty parties. So yeah, I'm glad that Dilma's out. It's a good day for the world when another socialist tin horn gets their just desserts. Hopefully she ends up in a jail cell or hanging off of a pike because she betrayed the trust of the Brazilian people. For her to call it a coup, that's just her trying to get a few million Maoists or something to burn some tires so she seems relevant for a while until everything dies down and people realize, oh, things are so much better without that bitch in charge. That's about all. Peace out.